got a great resource, of course, that you've built for business wellbeing. Can you tell us a little bit more about First Steps?
So First Steps was put in place. It's a resource built by business for business, but it's a partnership with government. It's been in place since the beginning of this year, and it's a self-directed site. So you can go into the site and there's a huge amount of resource there associated with health, mental health and wellbeing. If I have a look at the site over the last 6 months, we've had over 80,000 visitors to the site. We've had nearly 90,000 resources downloaded. If I have a look at the conversations that are happening in there, the conversations from business are about burnout, they're about workload, and they're about pressures of living. If I then take a look and say, what are the top issues that business leaders are talking about at the moment? They're talking about stress and they're talking about anxiety. And if you have a look at what the responses are, the response to those two issues are firstly emotional outbursts, avoidance, and alcohol and drugs. So I think it's a good thing that we know and we can tell the signs, and individually, if we know what the signs are, we know that we can react. I think one of the big things for me is the people that are using the site are the people with need. What I'd like to be able to do is say to people, before you have a need, this should be a part of your life. This should be a part of the behaviours you develop so you don't get to a point where there's pressure, where there's stress, and where there's pressure on your life and the way that you're living it.
Mm-hmm. We've obviously heard the statistics and we're hearing it in this business performance index. You're seeing it at the coalface. Is this a surprise to you, or were you actually expecting this to roll out after the pandemic or on the tail end?
No, I think there was a conversation that was happening before, but it was a conversation. I think the things that our speakers have talked about, that's what's made it worse in the marketplace. So if you have a look at the pressures on business today, some of them are financial, and it's going to be about interest rates, and it's going to be about mortgages, and it's going to be about access to money. It's going to be about access to staff and the shortages and the inability for businesses at the moment. So you've got a whole lot of new pressures that have come through there, and those new pressures are making the issue of mental health and wellbeing, it's making it worse. And I think for the government to have a response, and for us as business organisations and leaders to be encouraging people to have the conversation and take the steps to mitigate the mental health issues that are out there, I think it's a great thing.
No, definitely, and great to catch it early as well, like you say, and it's obviously great to get direction from a boss, but when you're your own boss, how do you actually prioritise that? Because I know there are so many business pressures and stresses. How do you make mental wellbeing a top priority and factoring that into your day-to-day?
So I think for most of it, it's a case of having that conversation. So I think a part of our value statement, and so many corporates today in particular will talk about their value statements. And I think it's probably time many of us started talking about our behaviours. And so it's the behaviours when you're in front of the audience, and it's also how you behave when you're by yourself. And that's important. If you have a look at some of the real essentials, it's going to be about breathing, it's going to be about eating, and it's going to be about exercising. And you can't compromise on any of those. Doesn't matter if you're an employee at the lowest level or a boss. Those are the things that matter. So an example would be, if you're working long hours and you're grabbing snacks and you're grabbing fast food, there's a cost to that. And the cost's going to be in your health, it's going to be in your well-being. And if we know that, then we know how to respond. And it's the same thing around exercise. It's important to exercise. It's important that we're getting good sleep. And if we're not getting any of those things, you can come to the First Steps site, and there's some great resources there that are going to help. But these are conversations we should be having in our teams. We should be having them from the top all the way through of our organisations to make sure that we've got a response there for the people as they come under pressure, if they come under pressure.
It's such a complex issue, and it's amazing to think it's something as simple as your nutrition, your ability to exercise, taking that time to actually have a bit of a breather. It's amazing to think that it's such a simple solution, or can be a simple solution. What do you say to people who go, I just don't have time. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to go for a walk. How important is it to actually make that and put that at the forefront of your mind?
And I think a big part for people today is that they have a plan. I think, one of the things that when people are saying they don't have time, one of the problems with people is that we like to be liked, all right? And because we like to be liked, we say yes when people ask us to do things. We have to learn to say no. And if we're going to be saying yes, we need to make sure we've got good teams around us that we can delegate to. Right? So there's a choice in there, and we need to be able to think about exercise. I don't have time for exercise. Well, start off walking a short distance this week and extend it and extend it and extend it. Don't look to do things quickly. Make changes in your life and in your behaviours and make them slowly. We all have time. It's a matter of prioritising, and to me, your life and who you are and what you stand for is important.
Having those healthy boundaries, it's something I'm still learning myself, and no doubt a lot of other people are. You touched briefly on the resources available through your organisation. What are some of the specific resources that people can tap into?
Listen, some of the resources are interviews, and that interviews with top chief executives in New Zealand. Look, I'm going to name a couple. Greg Foran from Air New Zealand. Totally self-effacing and humanises this whole thing of who I am and how I should live and how I should have people around me. Some of those resources are great. Mike Bennett from Z Energy talks about the importance of me, the importance of me as an individual, and there's some great words from him. But there's also, if I have a look at one of the top issues that people come to us and talk to us about, it's about sleep. And if you have a look at the greatest recovery agent for us is sleep. What it does to the body and the preparation for the next day is important. So getting a good night's sleep, and there's some great resources around sleep there. So I think, from the little voice in your head and how to deal with it through to insomnia, or just knowing how some of our leading chief executives are dealing with mental health and well-being, is important, and you'll find it on the site.
And quick pop quiz, how many hours a night do you get now that you're semi-retired?
6.5.
6.5. Taranesh, how about you? 6.5.
About the same.
About the same.
I feel like that's about the average. Is it a relatively good benchmark, Michael, or does it vary from person to person?
It's the quality of the sleep. And I think one of the good things about the site, you can go in there and they'll give you some tips on what to do as you prepare for sleep each night, and the things that you should be doing with your phone and the things you shouldn't be doing with coffee and alcohol. There's some great tips there, well worth a visit.
I can imagine, the phone is definitely the big issue for me, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you sitting here on this couch. Now, before I turn back to you, Kim, I wanted to ask Michael, you've semi-retired now, you've gone into this. Why have you started up this organisation? You've clearly highlighted just how important well-being is.
I think one of the sad things for New Zealand is that, the large number of people that are dealing with depression. And I think when, you have a look at that and you see the things in life that take people through to having a mental health problem. And the things are the things that I talked about before, and they are pressures of life. They are our workloads. And there's nothing wrong with having ambition and, looking to achieve. But having balance in your life is important. Having your life and your well-being, the cost of your success, is not a great decision.